Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. Oh boy, is today going to be fun. You know, I know that a lot of the listeners, and I thank you all, I just want to extend a huge thank you for the people all over the world that are listening to the Celebration of You. And I'm really touched when I get emails from families in parts of the world that are sitting here listening to these interviews and these amazing guests together as a family. And so what I love is that, again, I get to pick and choose people that I think have something really amazing to share. And you've seen there's so many different stories out there. And today's guest, what I'm really excited about is that I have had the pleasure of getting to know her. You're soon going to find out that not only is she living her passion, which is actually how I know her, there's an amazing story that goes into her creating her dream passion, which is, let me welcome Julie Johnson, who is now the owner and winemaker of one of the most exquisite wines I've ever had, Tres Sabores. Thank you, Julie.
Well, thank you so much, Holly. You know, it's a great pleasure to be with you. And I love what you just said about celebrating family. We have a beautiful 350-year-old Coast Live oak on the property. And from time to time, it's wonderful just standing under this oak next to the vineyard, it's like it has its arms around you. It gives you this sense of celebration that we're so, it's like instant gratification. It just welcomes you. You become a family underneath it. Anyone who stands together under this beautiful tree. And yes, they usually have a couple of glasses of wine. We're all usually sipping a little wine together, creating a community and celebrating that. So it's wonderful to hear your introduction, and it's great to be talking with you.
Well, and I have to brag and say I've seen that beautiful oak because I've been to your amazing winery. And I just have to tell people, because I love for people to hear, how did I meet you? And it's so fun you never know where life's adventures and how the universe works. And so I had the pleasure of speaking in Napa at the first ever in 30 years of Women in Leadership, the big Women of the Vine event. And some very dear friends who are in the wine industry, Julie and Pam, had come to hear me speak. And then they had said, can we take you and your husband on a private tour to some of our most favorite wineries? You're going to meet the winemakers. And I'll never forget them, Julie, bringing us to you. This was the next day. And it was like walking into a fairy tale book. Your winery, right? Like that oak, it's just exquisite. And it was just like, I feel like I've gone into a fairy tale. And then we drank your wine, and then the fairy tale became real. And I'm like you're just amazing. Then I got to know the story. And then they started telling me just your passion and starting this. So where do we begin? First, tell everybody about Tres Sabores and just a little bit about the history of, you've been a big part of a very well-known wine that many of us drink all over the world. So take us to the journey of your passion with wine.
Well, it probably... The passion with wine basically starts for me with the passion for cooking and for eating and for being at a counter together with a friend at a new restaurant, or being around my kitchen island with my family. And, the rule for us is the chef always gets the first glass of wine. Well, when you're all cooking together, I'll tell you, you can go through a bottle of wine really quickly. But it really does stem from that, because I think it is a sense that you're supporting each other, you're enjoying each other's company. Yes, it's a little hedonistic, but there's a personality to what you are when you're together cooking and what you're creating. And so that's kind of set the stage, I think, for just enjoying things in general. But, you know a little bit about me that I was a nurse.
Yes.
And that is all about balance and nutrition and well-being and bringing yourself to some sort of center, be it so that you can recover from whatever ails you, or that you can stay vital and engaged and healthy. And I really do have come to believe over the years that the glass of wine is a wonderful part of that, in moderation, of course. And so a long time ago, I found myself, well, I will also say, I believe, and it sounds like you do too, as in our meeting here at the winery, in the serendipity factor.
Yes.
And so it really is simply a little bit of kismet and a lot of enthusiasm gets you to a position where you have some great choices to make. I made a choice at one point to move from Palo Alto, California, nautical miles away, to go to school at Bowdoin College in Maine. And then I made a huge decision not to pursue medicine per se, but to pursue public health and nursing. And that took me to New York City, about as crazy and wild and different a place from a lobstering village in Maine as you could get. They all thought I just gone away. Those are all points. And then I'll tell you, when a number of us got together and said, we're going to go visit some friends up in the Finger Lakes in New York, it was a serendipity factor that put me together with my husband-to-be, who's the new winemaker up in the Finger Lake area of New York. And then before too long, a call came from California that said, would he return back to the Napa Valley? And gosh, I had gone to summer camp here when Calistoga still had dirt streets. I mean,
oh, wow. I love Calistoga too.
Oh my gosh, I can tell you so many stories. Let's just say, leave it at this. We were playing Peter, Paul, and Mary as reveille for this camp of horses and so on. Anyway, so to return essentially to my roots in Napa was terrific. Well, we teamed up with another partner, Larry Turley, and his wife, and we both had not much to our names except for our R90S BMW motorcycles, which we sold, and I wasn't too happy about that, and we bought our first grapes. And because my husband was a winemaker, we started, like you say, a winery, Frog's Leap.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, 1981, nobody thought a winery like Frog's Leap was going to have any possibility of succeeding. And I'll tell you what's more, there were really only about 50 viable bricks and mortar wineries in Napa about that time. So we had the best advantage, just an exponential growth, just like everyone around us. People got engaged with wine. They saw all sorts of possibilities. People started drinking more wines from all over the world. And look at where we are now. I mean, it's just so exciting to walk into your local wine merchant and say, I'd like to try something new. There's so much out there.
Yeah.
And then little wineries like my own hopefully get involved with that selection that merchant might have for you, And so either people discover us by coming here to the winery, or people get suggested. So march ahead many years. We're in the position in 1987 to purchase a beautiful 35-acre property here in the western bench of Highway 29, Western Rutherford, which is a glorious place indeed for growing grapes, growing lots of things. And we had come to a ranch then that already had grapes planted, already had Zinfandel planted. We had a ready market for the grapes with Frog's Leap. And we raised our children here and developed the property and planted more olives and planted more grapes and planted pomegranates, way too many pomegranates. And as you know,
I love
and
those.
Lemons. And,
yes.
And then there came a time in my life when, here's another serendipity factor, I decided that it was time to focus in. My kids were teenagers. There was lots of joy in their life. And the idea was, just pull back and then move forward and focus more. And I guess that would be my next point of kind of serendipity, in that I decided to say, okay, I'm going to focus just on the grapes that are here in my front yard.
Yes.
Truly. Mm-hmm. You have 12 acres of grapes in your front yard. It's not a bad thing in life, I can tell you right now. And I wanted to become much more involved with exactly what was going on with the business side of grape growing, and what was going on with the winemaking, because I switched my career away from nursing, and had been doing sales and marketing for Frog's Leap. So I started a small little winery. It was based on the whole idea that there are 3 flavors in every glass of wine: the terroir, which is the place, really, the grapes themselves, what's the variety, and then the third flavor that's so important is the spirit of the good company gathered around each glass.
I love that. Yes.
And as it turns out, I had beautiful song as an inspiration for that. It's a song, a Latin song that's been known for decades, and families, generations pass it down from one celebration to another. It's called Sabor a Mi, my flavor, my taste. So 3 flavors, tres sabores, makes for my involvement with Tres Sabores today. I don't know my background, Holly. I call myself non-committed. I was adopted at 3 days of age. And so I figured I could be anything. And so I wanted to recognize the contribution of the people from Latin America who have been responsible for bringing Napa's viticulture to the glory that it is today. I wanted to recognize the growing of things, and I wanted to recognize how people gather and enjoy wine together. So there you have it, kind of the place and the people.
I love it.
Yes, there's a spiritual side to being on the land, but I think just the fact that you're producing juice that tastes pretty darn good.
Oh, and it's good. Can I tell you, girlfriend, your stuff is really good. And that's why it's like, my husband and I have become passionate. We put in a wine cellar years and years ago. We just became passionate because when you truly, it's one thing to enjoy drinking a glass of wine. It's another thing. It changes everything when you get to meet the winemakers like yourself, when you get to see the science and the art and the story. So when you open a bottle, like you should see, we have some of yours right now. And when we go to open a bottle, to us, it's a story. And it's such a magnificence of bringing the art and science together. And it's all from our earth. So, and I think that's why just being on your property was just so surreal. Now, what's interesting though, and this is where I want to go because this is fascinating. First of all, you always make me laugh when you just say in passing, and the last time I saw you, you were hosting an amazing wine dinner. But Julie, you always have this way of laughing, but you go, yeah, the last husband, well, I end up still using his grapes. Like you end up, tell us about that. Because okay, first of all, I didn't want anybody to miss Frog's Leap. I think there isn't a person out there that doesn't know Frog's Leap, and to think that you were part of the creation of Frog's Leap. So take us down to, I have to laugh about this, but the husbands that you've had and how you keep staying in business with them and you use their grapes.
Well, it is kind of crazy. It's a very small community. And that is one of the things people think, oh, Napa is so big and, oh, so fancy. And, people look at me and they go, well, when did you sell your last bank? And I'm like, no, I sold my motorcycle. It's like, it takes, you can make a very small fortune if you start with a large fortune in the Napa Valley. Well, if you start with no fortune whatsoever, then it's just a great thing, really. And so right now, maybe I'm the queen mom at Frog's Leap. I have no idea, but it was so much fun to start. And one of the things that we did, if you look at the labels for Tres Sabores, they all come from things. We have a label that is really in real life a 11th century bowl that speaks to the wheel of life and agriculture. I use a repurposed cocktail napkin, hand-woven cocktail napkin from Oaxaca for my blend called Por qué no? Why not? Why not have another glass of wine? I found a 19th century lithograph from England on a flea market table that is the label for my estate Zinfandel and my estate Cabernet Sauvignon. And it's really an elegant label, very intricate. And yet, if you just kind of blur your eyes and look down a vine row, you're inspired in the way that you're inspired by looking at this lithograph. And last but not least, again, the serendipity factor. In 2011, I had an opportunity to start making a true rosé. So a rosé that I pick for rosé. It's very light in color, very fresh and crisp. And I label all of my tanks and barrels, not with little white index cards or, white Avery labels, but with duct tape. And that's just to be jolly. And people give me duct tape. So I label the wines that I make with using wild yeast, just letting it spontaneously ferment with leopard spot duct tape. And I'm hoping this creates a picture in people's eyes. Well, my rosé has a label that's wonderful peach and gold and chartreuse. Well, it's just a great kind of pinks and golds and crimsons. It's basically looks like it's tie-dyed duct tape. So that's my rosé label. And so we started out with Frog's Leap with the similar sort of thing. Like, we have no money to do labels, so let's just have some fun with it. And we found a gentleman, Chuck House, who was going to able to do a label for us for Frog's Leap, very much on the DL, and we were going to see what we got. Well, as it turns out, his label was recognized by the Smithsonian and by all sorts of professional organizations. And he charged us $200 and 2 cases of wine for that beautiful label. Oh. And today he's Charles B. House Jr., and he charges a magnitude more than that $200 for labels. But that's the kind of thing where we've just had that opportunity. And again, at Tres Sabores, I've just had that opportunity to make use of inspiration and carry it forward. So I make a fraction of the wine we made at Frog's Leap. I make 4,000 cases. I make just 200 cases of my estate Cabernet. I make up to about 500 cases of most everything else. So they're small lots. They get to be individuals. The great thing about being on a single vineyard and working with vines just from a single vineyard is that from year to year, they really do have their own personality. They're individuals, change year to year. So, the authenticity, the very slight variation on the theme, the idea that things really do come from what's growing and what's active. And, we've just come through 5 years of drought here. Well, each year was such an individual, and it was so much fun to kind of explore what the grapes wanted to be each year. So all of these years, when I had an opportunity to change and start making Tres Sabores, I had other winemakers making wine for me initially, but they taught me a lot. And when people say, Julie, how is it that you have started to make wine? I say very simply, well, love and osmosis, because as you mentioned, I've had the opportunity to be married to a winemaker, John, and then at a certain part in my life, I had a chance to remarry, and also a John, and also a winemaker.
I love this part.
So he said to me, John Ingelskirker, who's a very fine winemaker, he said to me, well, don't you think it's about time you started to make wine? You've been in this business for 20 years and you've got this beautiful vineyard and you started this winery, this new little winery yourself. And so he is my advisor and my encourager. And now, as it turns out, the funniest part of the story is that my eldest son makes wine, and his name is Rory. He makes his own Calder label. That's his middle. He's named for Alexander Calder. So everything is mobile and life-giving and that kind of thing in his name. So he makes wine at Tres Sabores. And then his younger brother, Kyler, makes cider at Tres Sabores, Far Cider. And my husband makes this incredibly crazy wine that's an ancient wine. It's called Saint Laurent, but it's mostly in Austria. And so he's one of the very few people who's making Saint Laurent from a single vineyard in the United States here in Carneros.
Wow.
So we're all like one extended family to be sure. And my son was asked, okay, well, how is it that he makes wine too? And he said, well, look, my father makes wine. My mother makes wine. My brother makes cider. My bloody stepfather makes wine. What am I supposed to do? I got to make wine too. So it really, I think that is also then another point of great joy and celebration in my life, that we didn't start out to be first or second generation winemakers or wine growers, but it's turning out that way.
Yeah,
and
I love
what's
it.
What's been wonderful is just Rory, Kyler, Kelly, John, we are friends. We get the idea that this is an agricultural treasure, that this soil is incredible. That's why we grow organically. We grow certified organic grapes and olives and lemons and persimmons and pomegranates, because we cherish the soil and we cherish the balance. There it comes back to my nursing. We challenge ourselves to keep the balance and the nutrition in the soil and in the diversity of the property. We celebrate that diversity and that health and that balance, and hopefully it gives us good wines wines that are individuals every year.
Yes, it does, my friend. And being that I've been there and I've experienced it. Now, I want to go somewhere, and I know we're going to be getting close on time here. So the essence of this show is always about, what's the story behind the story? And you just happened to mention in passing about 10 minutes ago that you were adopted at 3 days old. I did not know this, but I love that you said, so I've never known my identity. I've just known that anything's possible. Take me back to your childhood. Was there a pivotal moment for you, Julie, that has really been, whether that was maybe as a young girl or maybe it was in high school or college, but something in your life that really impacted the spirit about you? You are a spirit that is just, life is amazing and there's joy. And I love the word joy, but it's always joy when I'm around you. And so take us back to your childhood. Is there something pivotal that had an impact on your life and who you are today?
Oh, that's such a great question. It's like asking somebody, do you remember when you bought your first bottle of wine? What was that moment? What was that spark? That's key for a lot of people. Maybe for me, my refuge and my joy was in theater. I had a chance. Gosh, I remember when I was 5, I had a chance. This is Palo Alto. So Palo Alto is a fantastic place to grow up. Very rich, intellectually and culturally. I remember, though, I had a chance, you're going to laugh at this, I had a chance to be either a rat or a little girl in a production of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. So guess what I decided to be? Not the rat. But I don't know, and I guess I was involved with theater all the way through college, and that's one of the things. If you hang out and you get to let your creativity flow, there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I think maybe that's something. Maybe that's the spark you're asking about. It's great to be able to reflect on that. I'm sure you'll get your listeners to reflect on their own spark of.
Absolutely.
I don't know, change in the past, but maybe that was it. I have no idea.
But what's great about that? You learned that you could be anything. Because I think, I have a brother that's just an incredibly successful actor and screenwriter. And one of the things I've learned through the journey of watching him pursue his passion and just in theater is I think you learn, what you get. And I have to say this because I did not know this about you, but I believe it gives you such a rich, in-depth view of humanity and human beings, because truly in theater, to truly do the art of it and to bring us the gift of being in the audience and seeing it, you have to embody a completely different human being and who they are showing up to be. So you have a level of right understanding, I think, greater depths of our spirit and who we are. And and maybe that's the turning point for you, because everything about wine, Julie, I can't wait for you to listen to this, because you will see that wine is, my listeners, everybody knows they can hear this, but you are you're bringing wine to life as though it's a human being with a spirit. And that's where this is coming from, you know?
Well, what you say is inspiring itself. I can't tell you, though, when I go out, and last night I had this opportunity to be in San Francisco at this beautiful little mini gallery, and with a whole group of people who are half my age, which is indeed totally inspiring and invigorating. I have to tell you, it's great. And these were people who just got it. They understood, they were starting to enjoy wine. And I brought them, I always want to bring people just a sense, even though we're in an art gallery in San Francisco, I wanted to bring them a little essence of the vineyard, of what's going on now. Because have you ever been to the wine country when it's the growing season, when things are just bursting out like they are now? Holly, have you been here during this time of the year? It's really crazy.
Never been there at this time of year. No, I would love it.
It's a great time. So vines are doubling and tripling in length. Right now we're in bloom, which is the time when all of the little grape clusters, all the flowers are bursting out and setting up as grapes. The flowers smell like bottles. Ounce, it would be $1,000 an ounce if you could capture that sense. And so to be able to just bring some grapevines to this group of people in the city and extend that ephemeral essence that's in the vines. I love being able to try to transport people to the experience of being right in a vineyard. One time somebody was here and they were planning to be here and they wanted to propose. And this poor young man, he's like calling us every other day. Well, how close to the vineyard can we get? How can I propose in the vineyard? And I had to keep saying to him, now look, you have to understand, if you don't want to be in the vineyard, that will be a problem. Otherwise, you can be 2 feet from the vineyard. You can go down on your knees in the vineyard and have the vineyard surround you. It's a wonderful thing. Well, finally, he got up the courage when they were both here. He got up the courage to actually do the proposal, and he got down on his knees right in the middle of the vineyard, and and of course we were peeking around the corner of the winery with champagne bucket in hand, but it was one of those wonderful celebrations. So when I take my little wine show kind of on the road, like we did when we saw each other in Arizona, it's a wonderful thing to try to say what's there, what's out there, what is it that I think I want people to have a sense of. There's a little theater in wine grape growing and in drinking and in enjoyment and entertainment, but it really, it's so much healthier and so much. It's just it is a full life. It's a very full life. And of course, there's always stuff to do. So when people come during harvest, which starts for us now, it's August through early November, there's always something to engage with and always something that we're an immersion winery. So when people come, it's not just sidling up on the bar, as you know. It's more, I know. It's more, let's go look at that 350-year-old oak. Let's go into the cellar and talk about wine and barrel, and let's go out in the vineyard and see what the difference is between Cabernet and Zinfandel and how they taste different from a table grape, which is incredible. I mean, yes, they do taste differently and they taste marvelous, and let's experience that, because then you'll have a story attached to the wine that you're drinking.
Yes, and it's the story.
That's key.
Yep. And it's the story that keeps my husband and I. That's why we love it. And I'm going to be wrapping this up now. And I just want to say thank you. And as I wrap it up, I always ask my guests this one question. And it's really important to me to be able to share this. And just very quickly and top of mind, if you were to go back to your 25-year-old self, what advice would you give her based on who you are today and living the life you've chosen to live today? What advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
Cherish, explore skills, go with even a broader, more diverse skill set, build a diverse skill set. Open yourself up to give yourself more time for joy and for yourself. And write about it, write more. I'd love to continue writing in my elder ages, and I feel like at this point I should have been practicing a long time ago. I love the medium, I love to share, and so I can think of spending long hours under that big tree with a glass of wine and a nice pen in hand and seeing where things might go. But I probably should have started practicing for what will be my fourth career much earlier on.
I love it. My fourth career. I love all the different journeys, and that's what life's about. And I was writing this down as I was listening to you, but I have a mantra that I always love to share with people, Julie, and I feel like you are living it. And that is creating a life that fits you versus living a life of fitting in.
That's a beautiful thought.
And that's you.
I hope thank you. But I hope all your listeners take in that spirit of sharing, because that is what everybody wants to do, right? And giving yourself the time, giving yourself forgiving yourself for maybe not doing the things that are so tight on your timeline, but giving yourself that time for enjoyment and fulfillment. Then you end up sharing more with your friends and your companions that way. It really does come back around. The whole idea of feasting it forward is kind of what I think you're talking about as well.
Oh, I love that. Oh, what a way to end. Talk about the celebration of you today and feasting it forward. I hope everyone gets to hear that. And I just want to thank you, Julie. And for anybody out there, please know, we're fanatics about her wine, and we love the handcrafted, the smaller distribution. So that's what we love about you, Julie. You create handcrafted. TressaBores.com. TressaBores. Julie is the winemaker. It's her wines. And I just want to say thank you, Julie, for being here. It's been a joy.
Thank you. Likewise. What a pleasure. And I hope to see some of your listeners at the winery soon. It'll be a pleasure.
Yes. And we'll make sure that they tell you, if you want to go see her, make sure to let her know you heard her on the Celebration of You, and you will get an amazing experience. It's just like being in a fairy tale. And before we wrap up and I end this, I just wanted to tell all the listeners, please know that it's by invitation only and selection only, but I have officially announced my next elite retreat at the Princess Resort here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it will be the end of September. So for those listeners that have always expressed an interest, please reach out to me and let us know. Holly at hollydowling.com. And thank you, Julie, for being on this. And please go leave a review on iTunes when you hear this, because it's the stories like this that help us share more and let other people know that you can live an extraordinary life. All right. Thank you, Julie. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.